Hi, welcome to a restorative yoga class. Today we're going to practice a lot of grounding work. So it will be mostly floor-based and seated. And if at any point you want to get a little bit more movement into your practice, there's always an option in any of my classes, but especially in this one, it's always an option to do a little bit more movement if I'm not offering it, or to do a little bit less movement if I'm offering too much movement. So there's going to be a lot of options, a lot of different kinds of props that you can work with. And if you have very little props, then you can do things just with your body, or you can take things from your home like pillows and couch cushions and things like that to create props that you maybe don't have. And if you have a ton of props, you might end up using a ton of props. I know I do myself. And then, of course, that means that you get to modify this practice however you like. So we're just going to get into it because you'll see for yourself exactly what that can look like. And there's, again, many, many different options, and there's always something for everyone because this work is so slow and so still. There's no pressing yourself into any sort of physical posture. There's no need to try to look like something else that you're seeing. It really is a matter of turning inward and trying to find what works best for you so that you can quiet the sensations of your physical body and really hear into some deeper layers for yourself. So with that said, there might be a playlist that you want to press play for, and there's one listed below if you're watching this as a replay. And then go ahead and come onto your mat. And it's really cold where I am, so I'm going to keep on my fuzzy slippers for today, at least for a little bit. So come onto your mat and sit down, and we're going to start in a face up, open-chested pose. So lots of options here. As you can see, I have a pillow as well as a bolster. I'm going to start with the bolster. And if you don't have a bolster, using a couch cushion that's a longer one is a perfect way to do this. You could also take some thick blankets or towels and roll them up for yourself. And so I'm going to take anything that's this long shape across my mat. Again, if you don't have a bolster, it'll be lower to the ground, but that also might feel nice for you. You could take a rolled up blanket and put that across your mat, right? Same idea. So you take something long across your mat, and then if you have a block or something a little bit more sturdy, you would put that behind the bolster shape, and that's going to end up underneath your head. So you might want that on the highest height to start, and then you can adjust when you come into it. I have a blanket covering my mat simply because it's a nice padding, a nice cushioning, and it feels cozy. And then you come to lie down over the bolster. So allowing your shoulder blades to touch down so that they're propped up and your chest is open. And then you would allow your head to lean back and tap onto that block, or perhaps it's a big rolled up blanket or even a couple pillows stacked, something to hold your head up so that your chest can be open, but your neck isn't straining to hold up your head, which is quite heavy. So getting something underneath your head to support it. And then from there, there's a lot of things you can do with your arms and legs. So you might even press yourself a little bit more, a little bit farther up, closer to the thing under your head so that you can open up your arms into a T shape. You might take your legs out long. If you find with your legs long that there's any sensation, any compression on your back, especially your low back, then I recommend not doing that. Instead, coming with your feet planted, your knees bent, and you can even lift your hips, drag your hips towards your heels to lengthen your spine, and then lower your hips back down. And from there, you might let your knees come together and widen the space in your sacrum, your lower back. And then another option, you might take your feet together and your knees wide in more of a butterfly shape, like a Supta Baddha Konasana. And that might be really big of a stretch as well. So you might take more pillows, more blankets under either knee so that there's some support and you're not stretching yourself super wide open, but instead getting a more neutral sensation. And so taking your time, again, there's many options, many different kinds of props that you can use to set up this sort of shape. And as you make your way into it, you might feel fidgety, you might feel a little bit of tension. Allow yourself to fidget, allow yourself to figure it out, to come into a still place and then realize you need to adjust again. And then eventually you'll start to find that sweet spot where perhaps you can come into a place of stillness. Perhaps you can even settle your eyes closed. And then start to notice your breath moving in and out. Notice any residual tension in your face, your forehead, and see if you can soften it. Spread the skin. And take these first few moments in this first place of stillness to do a little bit more active internal work. So scan through your system. Notice any physical sensations that might be drawing your attention. Notice any emotional sensations. Notice anything mental, anything happening in your thoughts that might also be vying for your attention. And as you open up this awareness for yourself, notice whether it is toward the end of the spectrum of lethargic and quiet and calm, or if it's on the other end of things where there's more tension, maybe even anxiety. So kind of noticing on the whole where you're meeting yourself in this practice. And there's no right answer or wrong answer. It just is where you're at. So seeing if you can meet that, releasing any expectation, and instead just open up, almost like a pool, open up a space for yourself to swim around, to sit with whatever's coming up. And to allow for whatever shifts need to happen naturally. In this restorative yoga practice, There is so much space to adjust and to modify as you need. There's so much more time, at least it seems that way when we're in a place of physical stillness. And so you can use that time and space to work in different ways. So you might be finding yourself in a more active practice of meditation. You might be following your thoughts and allowing them to go. You might be held in a space where you follow an active breath. Perhaps your breath is a little bit more vigorous in order to draw you in. You might be in a space with a more passive breath, allowing yourself to get a little bit more lost in the ether, to release any sense of practice or structure, and to just be. You might even go so far as to completely fall asleep. So again, this is the kind of work that is so slow. There's so much space for you to shift and adjust within it in whatever way serves you on any given day. Today might be very different from yesterday. And because of the nature of that slowness and that spaciousness, there's even more room for honesty. There's less pockets in which you can hide from yourself, right? When we're moving physically through our day or moving physically through a practice of movement, it's very easy to ignore little signs, ignore sensations, ignore certain feelings, because there's so much to do that you can just divert your attention. But here, you're allowing yourself within this pool to lay everything out in the open. And to compassionately sit with yourself. Look at your needs. And transmute your state of being from one of different pieces coming together into a space of total alignment. I know that was a lot. Perhaps it's the full moon energy coming through me. in an intense way. Wherever you find yourself right now, take a bigger, deeper inhale. And a soft, slow exhale. And do that again. Take a bigger, deeper inhale. Soft, slow exhale. And one more time. Inhale. And exhale. And so also making note for yourself that this is your practice. And the way that you attune to yourself and your needs is through your intuition, your sense of being that isn't connected to your thinking brain, but is connected to your body, the greater whole of who and what you are, the part of you that just knows by experiencing. So I offer, as I always try to do, that you allow your intuition to really be the guide for your practice. So it might be telling you that it's time to move and come out of whatever shape you're in. Or perhaps you might be called to remain in stillness, remain in this pose a bit longer. At any point in your practice, you feel called to go to something, a shape, a movement, a breath. Listen to that call. Heed yourself. Allow for that voice to be heard. So if you are coming out of this, then gently find some movement, maybe your toes and your fingertips to start. You might even cradle your head under your hands and turn side to side just to awaken your spine a bit. And then eventually you might roll off to one side. Perhaps your eyes are still closed. Perhaps you open your eyes, noticing what feels right for you. Taking a couple deep breaths wherever you are. And this is a point in time and transition between poses where you might find some movement. You might even come into something like downward dog. Or you might feel ready for some more stillness. And if that's the case, then you're simply going to flip over to a kneeling position for a moment to set this up. And so if you had that bolster or bolster shape still across your mat, you can leave it where it is. And actually, you're going to turn away from it and then grab perhaps a blanket, a long shape. You might even grab some blocks. So these are going to end up under your chest, the blanket and or blocks, and you'll come into it and you'll know how much or how little elevation you might want. Essentially, we're coming into a belly down posture, or almost like a supported sphinx pose. And if belly down is not an option for you, or if you come into it and it just doesn't feel good today, then I offer you flip back onto your back and come into a similar shape that we were just in. But for now, I'm going to offer the belly down. So the prop behind you is really nice because what you can do is come onto your belly and put your shins up on it. And you might even, if you have padding along your mat, that might be nice for your knees. So your shins go up on whatever's behind you, and that will allow for your knees to have a more neutral bend, or excuse me, your legs to have a more neutral bend to them, and your spine will be held in a neutral place as well. And then from there, you can bring your forearms onto whatever's in front of you. I'm actually feeling that the blocks are too high and I want to come lower to the ground. So I'm going to roll up my blanket a little bit. You might even put a pillow under your chest. And then from there, what you can do is bring palm over palm and let your forehead come down onto your palms. That way, your nose and your face has some space to breathe. If that doesn't work for you, you could also bring one cheek down to the mat. Maybe your arms come into more of a cactus shape. And at some point, you'll just want to turn your head the other way so that you find some equilibrium. You could also bring your forehead down like I had before, but with your arms instead of under your face, you could bring your arms down by your sides. Now that is going to allow the fronts of your shoulders to curl forward down toward the floor. So that might feel a bit like you're floating in space. It might not feel very supportive. So that might be where you instead bring the blanket farther down under your chest, and maybe you grab a block once more and put the block under your head instead. And that way, your shoulders are supported by the blanket. So again, there's so many options, so many ways to bring yourself into a posture. And the idea behind this work is not so much to create a loud sensation, but more to do the opposite, that we use props and certain shapes that are really supportive, that will really hold us up. And when our physical body feels held, feels safe, that's when our emotional body and our energetic body, our nervous system can all soften and release down. As if we're creating a container for ourselves. So noticing your body in space right now in this shape, noticing if you found that sweet spot or if you feel you need to adjust. Perhaps having that aha moment. And then wherever you find yourself, taking a deep, full inhale. And a soft, slow exhale. Allowing your body to evolve with the pose with each breath in and each breath out. Noticing if with your physical body you can soften a little bit more, bringing your awareness to any places of tension, and simply bringing your awareness there and choosing to soften. Very simple process of getting down to the inner space, the core of how we function, and creating desired change, starting with that seed of thought. Simply choosing to soften, choosing to release. Letting your breath guide you through that in whatever way it shows up for you. You might bring your awareness back to your forehead, which might be touching onto a block or a pillow or a blanket. Bring your awareness to your forehead, and even if there is compression against it, see if you can soften that space. Almost allow it to spread wide. And become empty and open and cleared. Notice your breath. Notice your body, your physical body, your energy, your emotions. your mind. Your intuition. Remembering to listen to whatever messages you continue to receive. To follow your own wisdom. And if you're on your belly and your head is turned to one side, you might turn it to the other side if you haven't already. Feeling the physical support around you and underneath you. Feeling the ground underneath you and your connection to it. Almost imagining the roots of the earth going down and down and into the center of the earth, and then growing all the way up to the surface where they meet your body. So imagining a massive support structure underneath you, even bigger than what you can actively see. And with that idea, notice if you can allow your body to be held, within this larger sense of nourishment and support. Wherever you are, take a bigger, deeper inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And a soft, slow exhale. And then one more time, a bigger, deeper inhale. And exhale. And you might stay as you are. You might start to find some movement and draw yourself gently out of the shape that you find yourself in. And you might find a counter pose that is still. Maybe you're on hands and knees. And you might even come into downward dog and lengthen the backs of your legs even more. I feel like an Eskimo with these shoes on. But they're so warm and cozy. Oh, that's another thing. If you're not already wearing a sweater, you might put on a sweater, socks even. The more stillness we find, the nicer it is to feel warm and cozy. Noticing your breath, noticing your body. You might pause seated for a moment, taking your hands into your lap, softening your forehead, your eyebrows, and just scanning through your system. See if you notice any shifts at all since we started. Can you notice a deeper connection to your physical body? Can you notice a deeper connection to your energy or your emotions? Is there more clarity in your mind? Do you feel more connected to your sense of intuition? If you don't feel any of these things, if you still feel tense or stuck or fidgety in any way, I invite you to sit with that, to allow that to be the practice today, to continue to breathe through your experience, to not need to force and just instead allow whatever's coming through to come through. Wherever you are, take a deep breath in and a soft breath out. Okay. Next pose, next shape I'm going to offer is a side lying pose. And this is a really great way to deepen your breath in your torso and your ribcage. So I think a blanket roll is a really great way to set this up. If you have a bolster, you could also use that. The bolster, though, might be really, might feel very physically sensational. Blanket roll, and if your blanket isn't that thick, I would take 2 blankets, put them on like next to each other, flat, and then roll that up so it's a nice thick thing. And you'll take that shape and you'll put it across your mat. And then we'll start with the right hip next to it. And you want a little bit of distance, so somewhere between 6 inches to a foot away from the blanket roll. And then again, you'll take a block. I like to put the block the medium height. And then if you have something soft, like another towel, another blanket, a pillow, or even a little eye pillow of sorts, you might put that on top of the block so that when your head comes onto it, it's nice and soft. And then you'll crawl, so you'll bend your knees and you might bring your knees together. You might find now or at some point coming into this that you want some support between your knees. And this can help to soften the load on your low back and to create stability in your hips and your pelvis. So something like that, right? And what you'll do is you'll crawl your hands down toward the block that's going to be under your head, and you'll use this crawling action to lengthen the right side of your body, to lengthen the right side of your torso and your rib cage. And then you'll bring your lower ribs, so it's like halfway between your armpit and your hip bone. Somewhere in that area is going to meet that blanket roll. And then you'll bring your right arm, perhaps it comes down long and you crawl your fingers out. And then you'll allow your right temple to tap down onto the block, the pillow, whatever's there for you. And then your top arm, your left arm, it might come down alongside your body. You might release your arm in front of you. And if it's in front of you, you might find that you need more props, maybe another pillow or something underneath your hand. Your bottom arm, you might have the palm face down, maybe the palm is face up. And so there's a little bit of sensation, a little bit of support under the right side of your torso, of your rib cage. See if you can breathe into that blanket roll. And perhaps the sense of compression in the right side allows you to find a deeper breath and a deeper sense of freedom in your left side. So as you inhale, you might expand the top, the left side of your rib cage, of your body, up toward the ceiling. And as you exhale, you might feel it soften down. Noticing how this shifts the sensations in your breath that you feel in your physical body. Take a bigger, deeper inhale. And a soft, slow exhale. Perhaps you feel cold and you throw another blanket on top of yourself. And maybe that makes you giggle because you have like 10 blankets underneath you and around you. But again, you're creating that sense, that physical structure and that sense of support so that
you can naturally open and drop in and find a sense of ease. This work is almost like an indicator that it's safe to rest. It's safe to close your eyes and just be with yourself. Notice your breath. Notice any sensations, especially in your rib cage, in your torso. And continue to breathe into it. And take a deeper, fuller breath in. And a soft, slow breath out. And you might stay as you are. Perhaps you're ready to turn to the other side. And if so, you'll gently crawl your hands in to lift your chest up. Maybe you take a moment between sides to pause or do something else. And I also recommend taking a moment to unroll and re-roll the blanket roll so that the impression that your body made on it is gone, so that you have a nice new slate to work with on the other side. And then eventually you'll turn yourself away from the roll and turn your knees in the other direction and adjust the block that'll go under your head. And then you'll crawl your torso down, getting some length in the left side of your body as you bring your left lower rib cage down onto that blanket roll. And then allow your head, your left temple to gently tap down onto whatever is supporting your head. And your bottom arm might be out long with your palm up or your palm down. And your top arm can rest alongside your body It can rest in front of you or even behind you. I didn't mention that on the other side, but some people find a nice neutral alignment of their shoulder when their arm is behind them, because it allows the shoulder blade to come into the back body. And that also might be, over time, a little too much sensation. So again, noting for yourself if you have moments where you feel to adjust before coming back to stillness, and honoring those adjustments, listening to them, listening to that intuition. Noticing perhaps if you still feel fidgety is the word that keeps coming to me today. So noticing if you are having trouble really coming into a place of stillness. And perhaps that means this is the work for you today. There's a bit more tension in the work, or perhaps it means that you can deepen by focusing more actively on your breath. And just recognizing for yourself the distinctions between adjusting, moving because something needs to be adjusted, versus moving because you can't find a comfortable space, so you're physically just fidgeting, and I'll think of the word later, versus finding little movements, doing these little things because they are habits, because it's an autopilot expression, an autopilot movement. Just noticing the differences between those three different kinds of movement. Moving consciously, moving habitually and unconsciously, moving because you feel you cannot be still. Noticing your breath, perhaps feeding your inhales into the right side of your body, the side closest to the sky. Perhaps allowing your exhales to sink your ribcage back down toward the ground. You might even breathe down into the left side of your body, the part, your ribcage, that is compressed by the blanket. Taking a bigger, deeper breath in. And a soft, slow breath out. Inhale deeply. And exhale softly. You might pause here a bit longer. You might be ready to move. Noticing what your instinct, what your intuition is asking. And seeing if you can honor that. Thought of a metaphor that the teacher, me, I might be the guide, the tour guide, but your intuition is the bus and the bus driver. Yeah, I like that one. So it doesn't matter if I'm showing you something, you actually need to get there, right? You need to make your way there and go in the direction that you're going. Wherever you find yourself on your mat right now, pausing for a moment. If you haven't had a sip of water or whatever liquid in a while, maybe you take a sip for yourself. And then we'll set up one final pose, shavasana, rest. And there are so many wonderful options for that. If you happen to be near a couch, it could feel really nice just to throw your legs up the couch and then cover yourself with all of those blankets, put a pillow under your head. That's a pretty great way to take shavasana. If you're on your mat and you have all these props, perhaps you do something similar using the props to do it. So maybe you set up what's called Stonehenge, taking the blocks, the medium or the highest height, about hips width, and throwing a bolster or a big pillow. A couch cushion would work great in place of a bolster on top of that. And then you would take maybe the blanket roll is still as a blanket roll. That might be a pillow for under your head. Or maybe you use an actual pillow. If you have a different way, you already know that you like to take shavasana, by all means, bring yourself into that shape. I'm actually going to open up this blanket and throw it on top of myself. How clever. If you're taking the Stonehenge option, you would bring your hips in close and throw your legs up over. And then I like to, it's a little awkward at first, but it's worth it. I like to cover my lower body with the blanket before I lie down so that it's all ready to go. And then you would lie down. There might be a pillow underneath you or underneath your head. If you have an extra towel or blanket or eye pillow, you might use that over your eyes. Adding some weight and some darkness, allowing you to turn inward even more. And if you're cold, you might bring your arms in close to your body, or even take your hands onto your body. Once you find yourself in a quiet place, take a final deep breath in. Fill up your belly, your chest. Expand your rib cage and your lungs, and then pause at the very top. Pause as you're full. And as you exhale, just let it fall out of your mouth. And rest. Soften the space in the center of your forehead. Allow your head, your skull to be held, your shoulders to be held. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel the roots. Feel your arms and your hands held. Your spine being held. Your hips, your sacrum, your pelvis held. And your legs and your feet held. Allow all of you to soften, to go downward and inward. Take a bigger, deeper breath in. And a soft, slow breath out. You might stay exactly as you are. You could also gently find some movement. Deepen your breath. See if you can remain with your eyes closed. And you might bring yourself upright into a seat. Or you might stay in the posture that you're in. Taking a moment of reflection one last time. Seeing if you can notice what message or messages came through during this time. Noticing if you learned anything about yourself, from your intuition. What stands out? And what's the lesson? What can you take from your experience here on your mat with you as you move off of your mat and into the world? What wisdom is there to be gained from yourself? Sometimes all it really takes is just powering down, slowing down just enough so that we can have the clarity to hear. It's that simple. So noticing if there is that piece of wisdom that you'd like to move forward with into your day. And then drawing your palms together at the center of your chest. Taking a deep inhale through your nose. And like a whisper, exhale through your mouth. Guide your thumbs up to the center of your forehead. Inhale. Exhale. And then gently bow your chin as a gesture of gratitude for the shared space, the shared experience, and the shared energy. And then gently release your arms down And in your own time, blink your eyes open. Thank you so much for joining.